Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Melinda Nusafora. The blowback from the murder of Saudi journalist and dissident Jamal Khashoggi continues to haunt the kingdom's crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. Fresh off a multi-nation tour to North Africa and the G20 summit in Argentina, bin Salman received a strong rebuke from the US Congress. Lawmakers were briefed by CIA Chief Gina Haspel, which led to the filing of a resolution condemning bin Salman's role in Khashoggi's murder. The damning assessment has put Republican senators directly at odds with the White House. US President Donald Trump has largely sided with the embattled Crown Prince rather than accept his own intelligence agency's assessment. The fallout is already brewing in Washington, with calls for the US to end its military support for Saudi operations in Yemen. Meanwhile, in a surprising move, Saudi Arabia's King Salman has invited Qatar to attend the next GCC meeting, which brings together Gulf countries. The invite came just days after Qatar announced it would be leaving OPEC. The energy-rich country has endured a Saudi-led blockade, largely pushed forward by bin Salman, for more than a year. Well, 2 months after Jamal Khashoggi's death, and the fallout is still continuing. To break down the newest developments, I'm joined by Uzcan Tikit, who is a journalist at TRT Haber, focusing on Turkish foreign affairs, and Mahjoub Zweri, who is an associate professor and director of the Gulf Studies Centre at Qatar University in Doha. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Thank you. Mahjoub, I'm going to start with you. Now, the US Congress has passed a non-binding resolution stating that Mohammed bin Salman was complicit in the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. But this kind of resolution doesn't really require any kind of affirmative action. It's almost more of a statement. Can we see anything positive coming out of this? Is it going to make any tangible change?
It's about momentum. It's about keeping the momentum on this issue. The Americans, the Congress members, want to make sure that the issue is still hot, is important to the congressmen, and Mohammed bin Salman has to face the reality that he is responsible of this murder. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is actually putting the president himself under more questions about his credibility. They saw the same, or they heard the same evidence the president heard and read, and he came to a different conclusion how this happened. So it's about questioning the credibility of the president and actually what he should do to avoid more difficulties within the congressmen. And the third point actually here quickly is the fact that international community should pay enough attention to the leadership of Saudi Arabia and what they are doing. And it sent a clear message that this leadership is not reliable, and you have to make sure that you keep your eye on it, otherwise there will be more difficulties.
And I mean, speaking of difficulties, Uzcan, I'm going to ask you, the White House, this rift between the White House, Congress and the intelligence community is just deepening, and it's now laid bare for the whole world to see. Can Donald Trump still keep weathering this storm? Has he lost his credibility?
I guess there are lots of reasons why Donald Trump is behaving in this way. Actually, he's behaving with the spirit of a business, and he's not behaving with the spirit of a statesman. And he has lots of special relations with the MBS and Saudi royal family. By the way, his son-in-law has lots of reasons, and he's one of the guys who is in danger at this situation. So I guess he will keep this way. He'll keep going on this way, and I think he can do that because as a president he has the power, he has the authority, and as he had said before, even the Congress passes a resolution against the Saudi royal family or that can damage the relation between him, not the United States, between him and the royal family, he will veto this resolution, and I guess he will keep this attitude.
Well, it's certainly putting him at odds with some very powerful senators. The mutual outrage over his handling has almost seemed to bring the opposing sides together in a bipartisan way that we haven't seen for quite a while. First of all, I just want you to have a listen. We're going to have a listen to Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. This is what he had to say.
If the Saudi government is going to be in the hands of this man, For a long time to come, I find it very difficult to be able to do business because I think he's crazy. I think he is dangerous, and he has put the relationship at risk.
And in a rare show of bipartisan support, this is what the Democratic Senator Christopher Coons had to say. I think it's time for us to send a clear and strong signal to our close ally Saudi Arabia that actions that violate our core values, like murdering a US resident journalist, have consequences. Mahjoub, they are both very strong statements from opposite sides of the aisle there in the United States. Do you think now there is enough political discontent for Congress to vote to end US military support for the Saudi-led campaign in the Yemen war?
As you know, 63 of the members, they already agree on the fact that the war in Yemen should be stopped, and they are pushing to a resolution to end the war in Yemen. But I don't think so the focus will be ending the war in Yemen. It's about also accountability. What happened in Yemen? Someone should be accountable. Someone should be responsible of the disasters the Yemeni people have faced in the last 3 years. So everything is happening now in Sweden about the peaceful discussions is not the end of the story. I think the administration tried to escape away and saying there is something going on. We are doing something in Sweden. We pushed to have a solution, but I'm not sure this is the only thing they can do. That's the reason why the congressman actually insisting that is what the administration is doing is not enough. Pompeo is not doing enough to hold Mohammed bin Salman accountable. On the other issue, I think we have to take into consideration that the administration also is not taking enough seriously what the congressman is doing. It seems that the president himself feels that he is, as a president, he has everything in hand and he can do everything without being held accountable. I think that the congressman saying, no, hold on, there is a congressman, we have a responsibility, you have to take us seriously. And I think that is the reason why I said keeping the momentum and pushing the president under severe pressure to go himself and do something. And that is, actually, I think, in the meeting held between the director of intelligence in Turkey and the congressman, that is evidence that the congressman is walking ahead to give more evidence on what happened in Istanbul and saying to the president, look, hold on, you have to take seriously what's happening.
Ozcan, moving away from the United States, Saudi Arabia's King Salman has invited Qatar to join the GCC summit. Now, we know that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was very instrumental in orchestrating this blockade to isolate Qatar. Now his father seems to be softening Saudi's stance on that. Is this an example of MBS losing his influence, do you think?
I guess this is an example, actually, what the MBS is trying to do to a bit decrease the pressure on himself. Because, as you know, in the resolution that which is described, given at the Senate of the United States, there are some points that the United States Senate is asking. One is Yemen, stop the war in Yemen, and then start the isolation of the Qatar. And third, someone should be held responsible, accountable about what happened at the consulate of the Saudi Arabia in Istanbul. So the 2 points actually are in process of evaluation. For the first one, as I know, there is a now meeting between the parties in Yemen in Stockholm, which is the negotiation is still going on between the two parts first time. And the second, now the inviting Qatar to do this summit is another point that MBS is saying to the world, these are the things that I can give to you, but then don't ask me to be judged by and give a green light to be in a court and behave in a responsible way.
So he's giving a little bit, but not enough. I'm sure you've got quite passionate views about this particular question. Mahjoub, what do you think? Is this invitation to Qatar a sign of softening?
I don't think so. I think let's remember there is no institution in Saudi Arabia which decides about foreign policy. Let's remember, foreign policy of Saudi Arabia was run by King Faisal and his son for 70 years. There was no institutions. It's a decision of the king and people surrounding him. Everything happened in Saudi Arabia since 2015, run by Mohammed bin Salman and his team, and making different steps and undermining international law, undermining the human rights, undermining the respect to the life of people. Everything has happened under the leadership in the last 3 years without considering any institution. So why we have to look at what's happening now as a soften? Because what's happened basically, it's a very normal situation to invite the leaders, all the GCC, including Qatar. And I'm not sure that Qatar will be interested actually to join this summit, especially knowing all of what's happened in the last 3 years, responsibility of Saudi Arabia, and looking at the blockade since 2017. So at least from, I would say, from Qatari perspective, this kind of invitation is by default should happen, but should not put a lot on expectation on this, because simply what happened to the Qataris in the last 1 year and a half is not acceptable by the leadership of Qatar and the people, and they say, okay, this is not enough to invite us. So I don't think so that this will change anything on what's happening in the Gulf. This shows the leadership of Saudi Arabia is trying to do something, but in the wrong time.
It doesn't look like he is going anywhere anytime soon. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for your contribution to our discussion today on Straight Talk.
Thank you.